Yeah, again, I think it's for them the usual thing, a different way of thinking about music and making music, which is back where we started. Why did I get interested? And partly I got interested in non-Western music because I was almost desperate to find another way of thinking about music than just the one I was being taught in my undergraduate degree, which was really driving me crazy.
What was really inspired you to learn gamelan at that time?
It was more just the opportunity. It wasn't, you know, because, as I said, I went to America to do Indian music, and it was just a nice extra thing that was, you know, possible. Yeah, it was more the other way around of why I found myself playing in the gamelan, and then the inspiration coming after that in a way to sort of carry on with it. And you know, but as I said, the actual initial experience of playing in a gamelan was more a byproduct of what I was doing, because I was supposed to be, well, I was studying Indian music for my PhD at the time, but because the gamelan was there and they had Indonesian teachers there and all the students, they more or less said, oh, you have to play in the gamelan. I said, don't worry, I want to anyway, you know, because it was just what people did. It was the best thing happening, more or less. So I just thought, yes, I'd go along to that. But I suppose if they hadn't been a gamelan there, I would have done all my other stuff and possibly never have played a gamelan. I don't know. It's just lucky to go to a university that had both things going on. And it had to be America in those days, you know, nothing in the UK. 1969, my goodness, the UK, zero.
How does gamelan affect your life?
It's at various times it's almost taken it over. When in the heyday of the English Gamelan Orchestra, it was very prominent. Almost every day, phone calls with Jan every day of the week, you know, rehearsals all the time. It's become a major thing here, and again, you know, 30 years, because I think most of the students, I've got the feeling, I won't say on their behalf, but I'd bet that a lot of them think that my main reason for being in this department is to run the gamelan. And I say, well, actually, you know, it was just a sideline, you know, you know, Indian music was what I was actually, I've never qualified in gamelan, you know, I never did any formal study in it. I have no qualification, I don't have a degree or anything like that in gamelan. But because it's so big, well, relatively big in the department, and people think, well, that's all I do. So it's been a very major part, and I can't tell you how many thousands of miles I've driven in trucks transporting gamelans around the country and even abroad to Italy and Ireland and goodness knows, and the number of times I've loaded and unloaded a gamelan. So I feel I know them quite well in that respect.
How does gamelan fit in the British society?
Ooh. Well, I think probably the best way into that one is to talk about the sort of educational uses, because I think the British society at large, probably the majority don't really know much about it at all. And those who attend concerts, you know, I've never done a kind of analysis of what sort of people actually will go to a gamelan concert when it's on offer, if they haven't actually played one or anything like that. And it's often that they're interested in world music, or a lot of them come up and say, oh, I lived in Indonesia for 10 years and things, but I never really heard gamelan, and now I, you know, just get a lot of that sort of thing, people who had connections with Indonesia. But I think the main impact in Britain has been through the educational programs. That's why the South Bank is so important, because it's been the main one probably for setting up all these schools workshops. Because, you know, when students come here, I often say to them, well, how many of you have seen a gamelan or played, better still, played in a gamelan? And there's always a few who will say, yeah, I played in a workshop, and often they'll say at the South Bank or something. So it's had a big impact on that, and it was incorporated into the school curriculum as well, wasn't it? So that a lot of, you think, God, these kids who, you know, 9, 10, early teens and things, who are not only playing in gamelans but composing music for gamelan. And I thought back to when I was that age. I'd never heard of a gamelan. So the perception of it has expanded a lot through, you know, think the thousands of school children that have done even one workshop or something, and then no doubt thousands of students in York and other places who have been through and played in the gamelan for a year or 3 years or whatever. And then a lot of them go off and teach themselves and then spread it around like that. So that's really where it's made its greatest impact, I think. The best, well, no, this is slightly frivolous, but if you'll permit, I thought something which really showed how gamelan had become into sort of mainstream British perception was when a comedy show on BBC television, BBC One, I think, a very well-known comedy show. In fact, it was Mel Smith and Griff Rhys-Jones. I don't know if those names mean anything now. Griff Rhys-Jones is still around doing crazy things from time to time on television. So there are a couple of comedians, and they're very popular in the 80s, around then. And they did a weekly half-hour comedy show, primetime BBC One television. And I used to watch them for fun, you know. And in one of them, they did a satire of gamelan playing. And it was very cruel because they were like sitting under a tree, and one of them was just banging on some instrument, and the other one was saying, what are you doing or something? He said, oh, I'm playing a gamelan, you know. So it was like making it look ridiculous. So I thought, this is not fair on the gamelan. But the great thing about it, I thought, well, my goodness, if they're satirizing gamelan in this primetime thing, it must be well known around the country, because otherwise the whole joke would fall flat. The audience would be looking and say, what the hell's that supposed to be about? But they'd all understand and think, oh yeah. So already gamelan had got a reputation, and gamelan players had obviously got a reputation for being slightly crazy, probably. I bet they did. So I always thought, I wish I had a clip of that. I must try and find it, because I'd love to show it. Very crude, very bad taste, but it showed that within a few years, in the 80s, gamelan was becoming a kind of household word around the country almost. So there you go. I think that says, as they say, speaks volumes.
How would you get the clips? How can you get it?
I don't know. I suppose in this day and age, you just say, oh, you just go and get the DVD or something, but they didn't do that with those series, so I don't suppose they ever, but they must still have them in the archive. So I suppose the BBC would say, well, I want all the episodes of Alas, Smith and Jones, I think it was called, and try and track it down. And I thought, oh, I don't even know how to do that, but it probably could be done. I wonder if someone clever should have put it on YouTube. I haven't even checked that, but you know, the odd things that get onto YouTube, and you think somebody might have got that clip and put it there. That would be fantastic.
Lots of old stuff also.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, because I don't always think about that program, and it's usually those days you didn't have video recorders or anything. Well, I hardly had a television, so I was just watching it, and I was just looking at this thinking, my goodness me, what is this? And of course it was come and gone, no repeats, no recording, nothing, so nothing I could do about it except just remember it.
Anything else you would like to add that I haven't asked? Maybe you would like to contribute and share with us?
I'm looking around thinking what in my usual spiel has been omitted. Don't know. Any prompts from? No. No, I mean, I can't offhand. There'll always be a lot of things, but that's probably covered it, the main points, you know, the history up to, because it's mainly, well, the 70s and particularly the 80s that were really, you know, and by the 90s, everything was going, most things that are happening now had got going by then, I think it's fair to say. What the future is, though, the only thing that slightly dismayed me when I thought, oh, I wonder if the whole process is going round in a, you know, full circle and we're moving to a new phase, when I noticed on the internet, whether it was eBay or something, somebody advertising a gamelan for sale in this country, and I thought, this is extraordinary, because if you think historically, in the 70s, Eric Taylor, me, various people were desperate to get a gamelan, I was trying all kinds of crazy things to get gamelans, all sorts of fundraising projects. The funniest thing was when I had, you don't want this, but I had a letter from a company in Thailand, and I don't know where they got this from. They wrote to me and said, I might have kept it, I don't know, but they wrote and said, we hear you're interested in getting a gamelan. I thought, how do they know this? And why would they be writing from Thailand?
Exactly.
There's nothing to, and they said, it went on something like, unfortunately, we don't do gamelans, but we do mincing machines. So they were trying to sell me a mincing machine. And I just got and said, and I was showing it to them, I said, well, we've gone crazy here. Needless, I didn't reply to them, but I did get some letters from Indonesia when I was going there to get this one. Various people wrote, said, oh, here, you're coming over to look for gamelans. We got a lovely one here. And I had to stop in Jakarta and go and visit some beautiful gamelans. And I said, oh, they're lovely. How much would this cost? And they said, oh, about 40 million. In those days, you know, it was a lot. And my budget was much less than 10 million anyway, I remember, something like that. So I thought, well, thank you very much, but I can't do this. But anyway, so when people started putting up gamelans for sale, that made me a bit sad, because I thought, right, so now people are desperate to get them, and now they want to sell them. And then you hear about these education programs that were so active in the 80s, you know, doing wonderful things, and you find out and they say, oh no, they've stopped doing it, they got rid of the gamelan, or it's just, the number of times you hear about a gamelan and you say, where's it kept? And they say in a cupboard, or in a porter cabin or something, and you think, this isn't good, this shouldn't do that. We're so lucky here, you know, to think we take it for granted, but we actually got a place where we can say, this is the gamelan room, no one else can use it for their rubbish. And the gamelan stays on the floor, it doesn't get moved around, put in cupboards. But when I first got it, they actually said, oh, you can't have a place for this, we'll have to just put it in the percussion store, and when you have a rehearsal, you bring it out into the hall and play it. I said, well, that's not going to work, because the whole of the rehearsal time will be taken up, taking it out of the store and putting it back. So as soon as we take it out, we have to put it back, and that's the end of the day. So, but we were lucky here to be able to manipulate things and get a room. But those places where they don't even use them, or they're selling them, I think, oh, well, don't know. That must be saying something about, you know, you think, are things changed now? Is it, or is it just leaving the hardcore that really are really serious, and the other ones where it doesn't matter? I don't know.
We treat gamelan as a holy thing.
Yeah, but I don't think it's dying down. You know, in fact, in many ways, it's better now probably than it's ever been. I think this group's better than it's ever been. The South Bank are as good as they've ever been.
And
yeah, and all the things that are going on, I think, and Lila Chita and all those groups and things, just great. Yeah.
Thanks to you.
Pleasure. Thanks.